Okay, I will get started. So, I want to welcome everyone to Overcoming Financial Barriers in Psychology Graduate Programs. I'm Angela Lovejoy. I am the chair of the webinar committee and a board member at Psychologists of Color. And the mission of Psychologists of Color is to increase the number of psychologists of color completing graduate school, becoming licensed, and successfully launching their careers. So, we offer targeted support services. So, that does include mentorship, support groups, academic tutoring, test preparation, and business coaching to psychologists of color. At its core, it is a nonprofit that is about racial justice and equality within the field of psychology. And so we aim to offer free events and tax-deductible donations that will assist providing resources to the community. So if anyone's interested in donating tonight, I'll drop a link in the chat. But just for some quick housekeeping, we do ask that if you are able to keep cameras on, feel free to do so. If it's absolutely not, you're not able to, that's completely okay as well. But definitely during the smaller groups that we might break into, feel free to turn them on if you're able, and then keep microphones off during the presentation if you're able to as well. If you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to raise your hand and Lisa can call on you. For anyone who is uncertain of how to do that, the function can be found under the React icon. And then I'll be moderating the chat through the evening as well. If you have any questions that you don't feel comfortable saying and you just want them read out loud, I can kind of help with that and you can put them in the chat. But with that being said, I will introduce our speaker of the evening, Lisa Lozano, MA and MEd. So about Lisa. Lisa is a fourth-year doctoral candidate in the counseling psychology program with Texas A&M University and an advocate for financial transparency with affording graduate school in her field. She attained a bachelor's degree in brain and cognitive sciences from MIT in 2017, a master's degree in clinical psychology from the University of Texas Rio Grande Valley in 2022, and a master's degree in educational psychology from Texas A&M University in 2024. She has worked full-time as a college advisor to 70 plus first-year college students who graduated from Boston Public Schools and a college readiness teacher to over 200 high schoolers in San Antonio, Texas. While an undergraduate at MIT, she identified as a low-income and first-generation college student and noticed that students like herself often had difficulties finding and accessing resources on campus. She then founded Class Awareness, Support, and Equality, or CASE, an organization that helped to develop and publicize resources for low-income students at MIT. It is my pleasure to turn the floor over to Lisa. Welcome, Lisa.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for making it, and thank you for Psychologists of Color for letting me do this speech. I love talking about financial transparency because there's really not enough of it. Without further ado, I'm going to get us kick-started. There's a lot of short discussions integrated in this presentation, but I'm going to also kind of have you guys voting on whether you want to do big group discussions or small group discussions. This is really about what you want to make this the most interactive for everybody. I don't see us using all 90 minutes. I probably see us ending at like an hour or so. But without further ado, let's get started. And Angela already kind of started by telling my educational background share. So I'm going to go ahead and I think you all will see it in three, two, one. Yes. Oh, yes. Thank you so much for the thumbs up. I'm going to go ahead and click slideshow. So here's the presentation, the cost of becoming a psychologist. And cost has a few meanings here, like the money cost and then the psychological personal cost that it takes to get through a graduate program. So essentially, this is going to talk about increasing financial transparency around graduate school affordability. We're going to talk a bit about why there's a lack of transparency. How do we increase that transparency, or what are band-aid solutions and potential solutions that people can do before getting into grad school or while they're in grad school. So Angela already kind of shared my background. I went to MIT for undergrad. I had to get more research experience. So I got a master's degree because I did apply for graduate programs, and I think it was 2020. I was told I needed more research experience. I went to get my master's. That was helpful. And then I went back and I applied again, and I was able to get into Texas A&M University for my doctoral program. So some relevant background. I'm Latina. I'm first gen college going. I'm low income and I'm currently 31. The last part, I added that because I learned that with applying for graduate schools, if you're older and like the longer you've been away from undergrad, the harder it is to get waivers. So that was something I learned the hard way in my own application process. In undergrad, I saw peers dropping out of college. A lot of them were Latina or low income or first gen, and thought this is a problem. I was pre-med at the time, but I felt called to do something about this. Around the same time, I had attained a work study job because I needed to work and hustle to kind of survive undergrad. And the work study job was with a nonprofit called Class Action. And so they address classism and host workshops that used to address classism. And I loved it. And I helped run their first generation college student summit. And then I realized my school was very good about providing spaces for first gen students to talk about the hardships of being first gen, about providing spaces for Latina students like myself to talk about our experiences. But I realized that there wasn't really a place to talk about income directly. And while students are talking about their hardships of being first gen or being low income, no one is doing anything about it. And so that aggravated me. And I was like, well, if no one else is going to do something, I will. So I co-founded an organization that addressed class and income disparities on my campus. Our job was to develop resources or find resources to help low income students. And what I learned in that experience was that there may be, and there were resources for low income students, but because people were scared to open the floodgates, I think that was the phrasing used with us, they didn't publicize it. And so that was a struggle or a challenge I realized that was occurring on my campus and probably occurs at other campuses too. Um, I've presented on this topic a few times. In 2017, I presented on classism at two different conferences and events. I've also worked full time as a college advisor for first year students, as Angela mentioned. Um, I also worked 1 year as a full-time teacher, and I was able to save a lot of money in that year. And a lot of that savings went toward my master's program so that I could prove that I had research experience to get to a PhD program. Um, and as a graduate student, I've had to hustle. I don't have a partner. I don't have an inheritance. I'm not living in a mansion. Um, I've had to get through this individually. And if you are single and don't have anybody to help you, you may have to work multiple jobs, as I did. You may have to rely on assistantships. And I had to do that on top of balancing classes and practicum experiences. And I've also spoken on this topic at NLPA, the National Latinx Psychological Association, last semester. I love it, and I really just want to help bring awareness to the actual costs that come with being a graduate student. Because I was so excited to get in, but nobody warned me about what it was actually going to be like financially. So the goals of the presentation, because I like to set them just so you know what to expect. We're going to talk about the scope of debt students get into, and that they can anticipate from their PhD programs. So what does that look like? I'm talking about debt. I'm talking about money. How scary is it? We're going to talk about that. We're going to identify ways prospective grad students and undergrads can prepare financially for graduate school. We're going to explore additional ways graduate students can save money, especially if you're already in grad school, just finding what else can I do to make this more feasible. And then we're going to discuss doctoral programs' responsibility and if they have a role in disseminating information regarding to cost and loans and debt. Purpose of the presentation, it's not to scare you or not to discourage anybody from pursuing a PhD program. That is not the goal of this. It may feel like it, especially with the data that I'm going to present, but that's not my purpose. I'm happy with the path I've taken. I'm happy with the debt I've taken, but we need to be more informed. So the purpose of this presentation is just to make prospective students more mindful of the financial risks that they may encounter so that you can proactively mitigate them if you haven't applied yet. And to bring awareness of this issue for others so that if others do have the ability to speak on it, they can and they should, if possible, if they're in those spaces. And lastly, it's just to inform anybody else interested in this topic. I don't know if there's somebody here who's not interested in psych, who just wanted to see what was up, this presentation's for you too. So introductions. I'm gonna do a quick vote. I see 7 participants, and I'm gonna put 2 messages on and ask people to react. Um, Big group, small group. Would you rather do introductions in a small group to get us started, or is this a big group? Because I think we're about 5 people or so, and 6 with Angela. So go ahead and like whichever one is preferable. No judgment. I've done both. It's all good. Okay. So we'll do big. Yeah. So big group is winning. We're also like a small big group, so I really like that. Okay. So I'm gonna share myself first. So you know me, I'm zooming in from College Station, Texas. Currently grad student, and the icebreaker, because we're talking about money today, we're gonna talk about the most memorable way you've saved or made money in undergrad or graduate school, or other ways students or peers you know of have saved money in graduate school. So it may not be about you. Um, Please keep this legal. I don't want psychologists of color to get in trouble. I added some examples to give you a kind of an idea, and I'm gonna go first just to help you, like to help warm us up. I was once Tim the Beaver. I once was in the mascot suit because I needed money. And I remember the fan in the suit wasn't working that day that I had it on, and I thought I was gonna pass out, but I needed those dollars. So I was like, I'm just gonna sweat and steam in this Tim the Beaver suit. It was one and done. I never wanted to do it ever again. It paid very well, but that's how I've made money. Um, who would like to go next? Or I could just kind of pick from the chat, the group. So anyone feel free to go, or can I get so the first person I actually have is Adrian, and if I pronounce that incorrectly, please let me know.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Adrian. I'm zooming from Philadelphia right now. I am a clinical psychology PhD student at Rowan University in my third year out of 5. The most, oh yeah, Philly's pretty cool. Rent is cheap here. It's nice. The most memorable way that I have, I guess, made money was during the pandemic. I was locked in my apartment, didn't really have all that much to do. So while everyone was baking bread, I was learning how to do stocks.
What?
So I actually,
That's
yeah,
cool.
that's been like living off of a little bit while
Mhm.
making like pennies in my PhD program. So I'm like really interested in financial literacy. I actually sometimes will give presentations about how I did like the stock stuff. Um, but you know, all that said, like I'm still really poor right now. Like the little bits of money that I made in the stock market are like really trickling down during my time in this PhD. So yeah, happy to learn some more tips.
Thank you, Adrian. Can you popcorn to someone?
Sure, the next person I see is David.
Thank you.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is David. I am calling in or zooming in from Connecticut. I see, in terms of grad school, so this is probably a little bit different for me. I am looking, rather have applied to get back into grad school. Previously, I was pursuing a doctorate PsyD program at Springfield College back in 2021. Had to step away from the program because I was dealing with kind of the stress of being back into grad school after my previous grad school experience. And so at this point, I'm applying for a master's program. And so in terms of saving money, I think my previous experience in grad school was basically kind of doing admin work. So I was doing school
Mhm.
part-time, and then I was working as a temp, primarily with admin work. And so that is kind of my way that I did to, kind of save some money and contribute, in addition, of course, to all the loans taking out for it.
Mhm.
So,
Thank you, David. May you popcorn
and I will popcorn over
to
to
someone
B.
else. Oh, B, yes, I hear, yes, I see what you mean. B. Thank you, David.
Hi. I should have put my whole name. My name is B. Yilmaz. I'm the treasurer of POC, and we're so excited to have you, Lisa. I have my PhD in clinical psychology. I finished my postdoc recently, and I went to graduate school in Virginia. I'm originally from California. That's where I am now, and where I did my internship within the LA County jail system and then stayed here for my postdoc at an inpatient hospital. Um, and yeah, I really wish that this was talked about. This was definitely not talked about in my program. We were sent resources essentially, but it really wasn't a discussion. So I'm really grateful for this. One of the most creative ways some of my friends and I made some money, it didn't add up to very much, but we would Survey Monkey was out at the time, and we would take like as many surveys as possible, which probably isn't the best, but we like all different I did like research for like biology or like chemistry or like whatever they were looking for, human factor psychology, other areas. And so that's sort of how me and my friends made money. And I didn't commit to this, but I thought I wanted to also bartend, but I was up late. It was just a little too much with the curriculum. Of
Thank you, B. May you
course.
popcorn, and I don't know who's left.
Let's see. How about Jessica?
Hi everyone. I am currently zooming in from California. My name is Jessica Taharo. I graduated in 2024 from University of California, Merced. I spent this past 2 years working as a teacher, and I am currently transitioning to work at a therapist office as a clinical administrator. I am yeah, I'm just hopefully my aspiration would be to go to graduate school and pursue and become a clinical psychologist. The most memorable way I remember saving in my undergrad was definitely eating a lot of cheap food. Yeah, cooking at home, trying to save my best to save money. I remember babysitting, trying my best to just like find anyone who needed help, anyone offering extra cash, babysitting. And I remember I'm so grateful for this opportunity. I found like a fellowship who was providing housing and providing lots of benefits. So that was something that I did to save a lot of money in undergrad.
Thank you. It sounds like you've had a hustle too, and you have to go out and look for these opportunities.
Yes, definitely.
And then lastly, and correct me if I mispronounced it, but I have Oshio.
Yeah, my name is Rochelle. Hi
Got it.
everyone.
Hello.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so my name is Rochelle. You got it. It's a short version of Anna Shale. I'm sorry I can't have my camera on. I'm taking out my braids at this point, so I might not look the
It's a,
best.
that's
Um,
okay.
yeah, so I am trained in school psychology. I graduated in 2003, UMass Amherst.
Mm.
I worked for a year at Boston Public School. Now I transited just about a year and a half ago from the public school system to a private school that specializes with students with autism. My graduate experience was a tough one. I'm international, originally from Nigeria. But financially, I think I was able to navigate the system with advocacy, with mentors who, before I got in, reached out to people within my school and let them know that the struggles of an international students are a little different. So please
Hmm.
make sure that there's summer funding. So I experienced a lot of strain, but I would say that I navigated through it successfully, just um, minimizing costs to the best of my ability. And I worked throughout. So from the first semester to the last semester, I was working. When it came to the citation time, it was work full time, and then at night, sleep 2 hours, 1 hour, sleep 1 hour, 2 hours of writing. That's how I made it through. But I'm here most importantly because I think mentorship is not something that you wait to the later part of your career to pursue. It's something that you have to carve out time throughout the process. So there's a student right now in my school who's studying for school psychology and going through the financials. So I'm here for her actually to see ways in which many students are navigating through this. I could pass it on to her and probably share with her the recordings, as well as another student who's looking to like come into psychology as well, and ways in which I could pour out the knowledge that I gained from this to them. That's all.
Thank you, Sheo. Um, Without further ado, let's keep going into this. And so for some of you, and my experience, applying was not the hardest part. It was stressful. It is anxiety inducing. And I've done it, I had to do it twice. I had to do the process twice. However, upon doing it, I realized there's a lot of online resources if you can find them that guide you. There's a resource also with the American Psychological Association with webinars that kind of walk you through each step of the cover letter of the interviewing. I had access to tons of mentors and faculty, and I was privileged because of that. However, that made that process easier for me. And because I failed my first time getting into a PhD program, I knew what was expected of me the second time around. So the second time around, I applied for 9 places, interviewed at 7, and got accepted at 4. However, that was not, I thought it was difficult and I was really excited. Money was not at the forefront of my mind, and it should have been. And here's something I noticed during my process as well. Before interviewing, I noticed that the information regarding financial aid, like scholarships or assistantships, wasn't easy to find online. I go to the websites and I'm like, I wonder how many scholarships they give. I wonder how many fellowships or assistantships they have. I couldn't find that information outright. During the interview process, I noticed it also didn't feel kosher or appropriate to ask questions about financial aid. I felt pressure to ask about the training and the research and make sure that it was a match personally. But when I did bring up financial aid and when I did bring up questions about do students get assistantships, how much are students have to take on loans, the answers were just so vague. People would say like the aid varies depending on what assistantships are available. The aid depends on the year you come in, or maybe if you talk to our financial aid office, or you should talk to a student. So I felt like people were also passing the buck. Faculty were usually hesitant to answer questions about aid and forwarded it to somebody else to do, even though I personally believe they should have some awareness about how much their students are paying. And then some students were not comfortable answering questions about how much they had taken out in loans. And then the students who were comfortable, they were very direct about needing to hustle, about needing to work multiple jobs to make ends meet. And just very briefly, you can raise your hand or post in the chat. Has anyone experienced anything similar? I'll take like one volunteer. Jessica, do you feel like sharing this or like you don't have to either?
Would definitely relate. I would go to informational meetings about these programs, and everyone's asking questions about all these different things. But all the questions I had was around financial aid or around, like the loans. But I felt scared to ask those questions because no one else was asking those questions.
Mm-hmm. And then for me, and I don't know if anyone else has experienced this, I felt like if I asked questions about financial aid, they wouldn't take me as seriously, or they would wonder why I'm asking about money and why I care so much about money. And it's because I like eating and surviving. But that wasn't cool in the interviews. It didn't feel like it was appropriate. Um, so the lack of transparency, there's also some people in the literature have also talked about this. Dora in 2016 has an excellent qualitative article about this. So this article, they interview or sample early career psychologists, so people who've completed their PhD or side programs within 10 years, and they ask them about how they feel about their level of debt, what they wish they had known. And so one of the questions asked to early career psychologists was, what is one thing you wish you had known about debt before graduate school that you know now? 71% of participants shared that they wish they had more education regarding the expenses regarding graduate school. And that's a lot. That's nearly three-fourths. About 34% reported that they desired information regarding loans, like the terminology, the types of loans, like standardized, unstandardized, what repayment means. 29% of participants shared that they had desired the information regarding the hidden costs of academia before even enrolling. A lot of students, myself included, did not know that there are these costs related to internship. So essentially residency that you need to do to complete your degree, or a lot of money to take the EPPP or study materials for the EPPP, or paying for to go to conferences that are mandated in your doctoral program. So the cost of a doctoral program, what is this money? What does this look like? According to APIC, which is the Association of Psychology Postdoctoral and Internship Centers. So this is the program that helps students match with internship sites as a doctoral student. 73% of students reported debt accrued during their graduate studies. So they're sampling students who have just matched for internship. This doesn't include students who may have dropped out. This doesn't include students who are still ongoing in their experience. According to their study or just their stats, but the debt from a graduate program for U.S. students, including PsyD and PhD, the mean is about 90,000. It's a lot. The median is 60,000. And this doesn't include the debt students may have accrued from undergrad and internship year, because this data is being collected right before they go on for internship. So maybe they've been in their program 4 years or 5 years, but this isn't everything. There's also a difference between those who go to PsyD and PhD programs. The median debt for PsyDs is about 120,000. That may even be outdated because that article is from 2013 from the APA. The median debt for PhD students is about 50,000. And again, that may be lower just with inflation and everything. So how and why is this so much? What is happening? So I decided to look at to my own school and do the math for myself that I should have done 4 years ago that I didn't do. I'm using the tuition calculator from my current school from A&M to have to create these costs. I rounded, but essentially a fall semester at my school for this coming year would be about 5,600. The spring semester would be about 5,600. And they didn't have the 2027 summer semester, so I just used this coming summer estimates, and that's about 3,100. You add it all together, that's about 14,300 for 1 year, which doesn't that didn't scare me. I was like, I could handle that. That is nothing for my graduate education. But you also have to live. So this is also another resource that I didn't know of until after I got into this program. MIT has a living wage calculator. It has a function where you can like select a state, and then it has a breakdown of counties. You can click the county, and I put Brazos, which is the county I'm in now, and it tells you how much you need to make to survive and have like a living wage in your county. So in Brazos, I don't have children, and if I did, the amount would go up more. So I'm being very conservative with these numbers. A living wage would be about $20.12 an hour. Great. And then they have a breakdown of the other things that are not tuition and that are not fees. That is not the 14,000 we talked about. The things to really notice are going to be I don't know if you can see my mouse now or not, but 36,000 after taxes, or 41,000 before taxes. So that is how much I should be making to survive and have a living in my city, in my community. Oh, that does not include the education either. So tuition and fees, 14,000. I should be earning about for 36,000. Let's see, 36,000 to 41,000 to survive. That meaning the total cost per year to survive here is about 50,000 to 56,000. So now I'm getting scared. Now I'm needing a perceived stress scale. I'm needing a PHQ-9, but I'm going to keep going. So how does this get paid? So worst financial case scenario, which some students have to do, is take out loans for everything. If you're in a 4-year program, And we're using these numbers and we're using my county, which is relatively more affordable than other counties and probably more affordable than the counties you guys are in. We're looking at over 200,000 for 4 years, about 250,000 for 5 years. And according to Clay 2013, approximately 50% of psych doctoral students describe loans as their primary source of income. So this is probably the case for a lot of students. Now, the average scenario is that you get an assistantship on campus. So you get a job on campus. Maybe you're helping with research, you're helping with teach classes, you're working 20 hours a week. I'm going to be very just what's the word for it? Optimistic. Let's say that this one covers all fees and tuitions. It's covering all of your classes, all of your fees. Sometimes they only cover 2 or 3 classes, but we're just being very optimistic. And they give you about 1,750 a month. And I'm using estimates from my own background too. This adds to a total of 21,000 after taxes. Now, I know there's a lot of numbers, so hang with me, guys. We have 36,000, which is, oh yeah, that's the cost of living in Brazos Valley, not including education, because education's covered by the school. We have 36,000 minus 21,000, my stipend, leaving a $15,000 gap. Yeah. After 4 years with that gap, let's say it's the same every year, nothing changes. That is 60,000 dollars I have to pull out of somewhere. I don't know where. After 5 years of classes, that is 75,000. And so now this is where we're getting to that number that was mentioned a few slides back from, I think it was Clay 2013. Best case scenarios, you win the lottery and you don't have to work, you just focus on being a student. You receive a $200,000 inheritance, so you be related to someone wealthy and rich, or you know someone who's willing to give you 200,000 or has a spare $200,000 to give you. That was in my case, and if you're in this presentation, it probably wasn't your case either. Okay. So consequences of debt and financial stress. In the chat or just going off mic, what are just some stresses that you see with this? How might this stress impact a student academically, professionally, personally, so forth? We'll spend probably a minute or two on this slide.
One of the things that I was reminded of is, and sorry, Adrian, feel free to go. Feel free to go. I was just thinking how one thing that comes up is like imposter syndrome already. And I went to grad school in Virginia. I had a cohort of 6 people. I was the only person of color in my cohort, and there were already so many differences. And I was from the West Coast and all these things. And so it was sort of like an added layer of stress. That contributed to like overall stress and like worry that I might not be good enough for those kinds of things.
It sounds like it exacerbated fears that you didn't belong.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I can relate to that as well. If I look around at my program, there is like a lack of people of color. And it is embarrassing every time that we have to do like interviews for new applicants in my program. And we have like Black candidates who are highly qualified, coming from great schools, have great research, and they're like, how come I don't see anyone who looks like me? And I'm like, good job. Yeah, read between the lines there. It's because my program does not pay people a fair wage. So then it disproportionately affects people of color. So people like myself, I have to juggle like the fact that I don't know if I can really even afford to live in my apartment right now. And I have things like homework to do, you know? I've got to like study for my class and I've got to like, I don't know, do these stupid school things when I am like not even I don't get a paycheck really. I would like to say that I'm one paycheck away from like homelessness, but we don't get paid enough even with a single paycheck. But I also can't afford health insurance. I'm on food stamps. I like can't do this. And my classmates are all like, focusing on their research because they do have
Mhm.
rich families, they have rich husbands, they've got someone who is able to subsidize their cost of living.
Thank you so much for bringing that up. That's such a salient point. Because in my own program too, I see people who are married or I see people who their parents can help them out. And I come from a single parent who has to hustle and work multiple jobs. And their parents can afford to buy them a new car, can afford to help them pay rent, can help afford for them to move and all of these other things. So yeah, it seems like that's kind of a common experience for individuals who don't have the money or yeah, who are struggling to afford this. Thank you for sharing, Adrian. Um, and I'm gonna make sure I'm not missing. Okay. So, additional costs. In 2022, there was an article that sampled over 900 clinical psychology students in PhD programs. About 43% of them reported a high level of stress regarding debt. About 16% had considered dropping out due to financial hardship. Over 50% of the sample had neglected to seek psychological or physical care due to financial stress at some point. Nearly 50%, so not over 50, but a little under, noted delays in attaining at least one life milestone, like purchasing a home, an automobile, dating, or having kids because they're in their program. And financial stress was positively correlated with symptoms of depression and anxiety. So more stress regarding finances, more feelings of depression, anxiety, and less sleep. So that's the other cost that is accruing in addition to the debt. I'm trying to, there we go. So Doran, 2016 qualitative study, I think we brought this one up before, but this is a quote from one of the participants. This person, um, this is somebody who is experiencing financial debt. So the financial debt required to complete a PhD in psychology is drastically disproportionate to the amount of financial earning potential after your degree is earned. At this point, I cannot recommend taking this path to incoming students. As a graduate, my stress is only increasing. Although I have a PhD, I am sharing one car with my husband, struggling to pay my rent every month and often unable to pay my bills. So this is a sample or an individual who wasn't content with her financial situation in her PhD program. And this one is, and I wanted to share it just for reference and not to shame, but just to show that there are students who don't have this experience. So this student said, I am incredibly privileged and that my parents are able and willing to financially support me 100%. My parents pay for my rent, car, phone, and additional educational expenses. I love this field, but not having financial stress gives me the freedom and privilege to love it. Based on the job and earnings outlook for counseling psychology, I would not have gone into this field if I had to incur any significant debt on my own. It certainly would not have been worth it. So, very different perspectives, very different lives, very different paths in the field. And I keep going. So ways of mitigating debt. The APA released an article, Clay again, 2013. There's not as many articles on this, so it's limited. So one suggestion from the article was for you. You need to ensure your salary is proportionate to the debt that you take out as a doctoral student. So it's kind of your responsibility to make sure that you pick a specialty in a field that is going to pay off your debt. So they suggest using financial aid calculators to get ahead of the game and kind of calculate how much aid you'll need to take out, the debt you're going to accrue. This article lists a few of the higher paying specialties within psychology. So they reference consulting work, which pays about 75,000. I think they mentioned the VA as well. The median salary for PsyD grads is about 60,000. The median salary for new PhD grads is 65,000. I know for myself and for a lot of other people who entered this field, I thought it would be a lot higher, especially for the work we have to do and the type of work we're doing to make sure that people are safe and providing therapy, providing assessments. Um, okay, I'm going to pause really quickly. Any thoughts regarding this? There doesn't have to be any, but anything coming to mind? David.
Yeah, I think for me it's just, kind of figuring out whether I really want to continue because like I said, I was in a PsyD program. I, dropped out before the end of the first year. Um, and I want to do like mental health. I want to be a therapist, but it's
Mhm.
also, you know, does it help trying to go for the doctorate? Um, right now at this particular point, I wouldn't look at it until maybe another 5+ years, depending on if I get the master's and
Right.
practicing for a little while, and then would increase earning potential, et cetera. But kind of looking at that, it's like I don't know if it makes sense, especially kind of taking on additional debt. So I'm just really kind of thinking about that now with regards to, do I just go for the masters and then I would have hopefully kind of two masters to work with and, kind of use that and try to maximize as much on that, or still pursue the doctorate. Like if I pursue a doctorate, I would be the first one in my family. And there's a level of kind of wanting to do that for a personal goal. But it's also, you got to look at the reality of it. So I think I'm just kind of trying to sit with that for a little bit. You're definitely hearing you all's experiences and then, just kind of looking at some of the math of this.
And thank you for sharing that, David, because right now it sounds like you're trying to figure out whether this makes sense for you to re-enter academia and re-enter getting a doctorate program. Um, and I don't, we don't, I don't know yet. It sounds like you don't know yet. However, I think just getting as much information as possible is going to help you make a confident decision in the future. I hope. So, thank you. So I actually used the financial aid calculator the APA recommended or the article recommended, and I was stressed because it was just a really pitiful for me. I didn't know how to navigate this site. I didn't understand the terminology. I just looking at it, maybe some of you know, but I had to Google a lot of these things. I didn't quite know what they meant by the loan fees. I didn't know what they meant by minimum pay. I had to look up the interest rate. The site recommended 6.53. I don't know if that's actually what I signed up for. So someone would have to go out and look at whatever they signed to find their interest rate. And then when you put those numbers in, you get the image on the right, and it tells you your monthly loan payment, the number of payments you'll have to make. I This page has 10 years if I wanted to do 10 years of loans. It has the cumulative payments and then the total interest. And the total interest was 21,000 if I take out 60,000 in loans. And that is just mind-boggling to me. Not only that, I was so confused as to why this number 219 is in blue. And I was like, do they mean that that's my monthly payment? What is happening? But what they meant was that's the last month I would be paying. The last month I pay my debt, it would be 219. This didn't make sense to me. I was like, why is the 696, why is that not emphasized? Because that's the number, not the final monthly payment. And I did this today. So the site, it should still look like this if you go in and do it yourself. I decided to put in 20 years. Okay, what if I need 20 years to pay off this debt? The amount is still pretty high. I'm looking at 450 a month, and the interest is also wild, 46,000. That is more than half of the loan amount that I had opted into, the 60,000. And again, it depends, and I'm just putting 60,000 and then maybe it differs from when you take out loans every single year. But these numbers are staggering. And I don't know, I felt really kind of low at seeing this and seeing the numbers in my face. Um, Additionally, the same article is referencing like, well, you can also do a public service loan forgiveness program, meaning that you work for a public service entity like the military or you work in a public school, and you can get your debt canceled if you work in this environment for 10 years. You can also do income-driven repayment plans, which is a payment calculated based on the size of your family and the current income that you have right now. So again, it's kind of putting it on you of like, well, will need to decide to take on a job that's going to help you get rid of your debt. You need to decide, you need to find out how to do this on your own. Number three, consider assistantships in working and getting funding through faculty members or grants. However, the same article notes that there may be discrepancy between the existing funding at schools and the doctoral students accepted into the program. Some programs may not have an undergraduate component. So mine, for example, I'm counseling psych, so we don't have an undergraduate program. So my program, my doctoral program cannot send us to go do teaching assistantships for our undergrad, but our clinical psych program can. So they tend to the psychology undergrads. Sometimes you could take on a part-time assistantships. The article also mentions maybe limiting the number of students accepted to a program. Maybe programs need to somehow attain donations. Are any thoughts, feelings, reactions occurring from these? I had reactions, but anyone else getting any reactions to this? And I'm gonna look in the chat really quickly.
I'm in the PSLF. I have known about it since my undergrad, and in fact, my undergrad debt is a couple of years into that program already.
Mhm.
So the way I've been looking at it is it kind of doesn't matter how much debt I accrue, as long as I, make sure I do this public service job for 10 years
Mhm.
after I finish my PhD, which in my mind seems attainable considering how
Right.
interlinked psychology is with public service. The chances of me landing in like I don't know, like a state funded hospital or something is pretty high anyway. So
Mhm.
might as well.
Ooh, I was have like a follow-up. Were you nervous to take that on? Or
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Don't really look at my debt. It grows all the time. And it is unsubsidized federal loans that I'm taking out during my PhD
Mhm.
program, which means that the interest is accruing during the 5 years that I'm in this PhD,
Right.
and I can't pay it down. So, yes, it is nerve-wracking. But I kind of just choose not to think about it.
Mhm. No, thank you for sharing. Because that some of these topics that I was learning about too are like I need to dive a little bit deeper into this, and I wish that my program or somebody had coached me that these were options because I hear about it, but I'm like, who's supposed to tell me about this? I'm going to keep going forward. So, who is supposed to tell us about this? One of the articles from Doran et al. Had one of the qualitative responses was, I wish the program had passed out a sheet that introduced and illustrated in a plain chart the stipend, income, and tuition costs. I think all grad schools should be required by APA to provide this information to prospective students in the spirit of informed consent, which is a cornerstone in our field. So that's one take. Another article in 2021 suggests that the director of clinical training and program should be tasked with educating students about the true cost of attending their doctoral program. And then, kind of a question of the group, and I'm actually going to put in the chat who should be the one to educate you. And I'm going to do the same voting thing in the chat. Should it be the program who does all or most of the work? Should be kind of somewhere in the middle. Should it be you? I'm going to put program. You go ahead and vote in the chat. So you just use any emoji to vote whether the program should take full responsibility or most, whether it's kind of in the middle, whether it's you. Okay, so I'm getting some middles. We have, okay, a lot of middle. We got three middles. We got more on the program. Okay. Yeah, so more program, no more middle. I noticed nobody says that the it should be on the student fully. Like I think we can all agree on that. Does anyone want to chime in on why that maybe that's not a good answer? Oops, and I didn't mean to do that.
I would say that in my program, it is entirely on the student to figure this out.
Hmm.
And I have seen the like negative repercussions of that. Like there are some students who come into my program and they don't know that our stipend is $9,000 a year somehow. Like first step, like you should have known that coming into
Hmm.
here. Um, and it is a disservice that the program is not providing this information when they are the ones who are paying us terrible wages. And they are telling us that, like, you're going to be making really little in our program and you can't really work outside of the responsibilities you have because they are taking up so much of your time. Like, we are constraining you from being able to earn a living wage, but therefore they should be giving us more resources to make up for that. And my program does not. So a lot of, like, it falls upon, like, me and other students who are, like, financially literate to then educate our peers, which shouldn't fall on me. Like, I've got other things to
Right.
do.
Yeah, it's not your job. You're not the financial aid. You're not the DCT. Um, David, can I read your chat out loud or okay, or you can also go off Mike, but I do totally agree with you, David.
Yeah, I think it would just be, you know, if you structure financial aid office so that they have people that can answer questions for the broad categories of the grad program. So,
Hmm.
if you got someone that can answer for, behavioral sciences, et cetera, and that can answer those questions of financial aid, of assistantship, of loans, everything that kind of helps a student kind of make better informed decisions and really be able to kind of have these conversations with them
Hmm.
prior to them, making that final decision of whether they're going to accept the program or not. But then still have them, so that if I have if an issue coming up, I can talk to them and that they know kind of how to navigate that with you. I think that would be a level, I've never experienced that necessarily in any of my programs, undergraduate or graduate, but I think that would be something novel and just helpful from a university standpoint to show, hey, we're trying to help you get there. We might not have all the resources or funds to give you, but at least we have people that are informed that can do that. And so, in many ways, it kind of sounds like having like a social worker help you kind of navigate and find these resources, or at least tag team with you to do that. And I think that would just make it so much more helpful and beneficial to students, as well as just kind of establishing care from a university standpoint, instead of just every student is a number. We're trying to get as much money out of you as possible. We don't necessarily care whether you're going to graduate or not.
And it also sounds like you kind of answered the second question of who should relay this information. And from what I heard, it would be helpful if a student had a point person or a social worker to help them navigate to the right point people to talk to. And you also mentioned something that I really love. You don't know what you don't know. Students don't know that they're supposed to be asking about EPPP or like conferences and all of these other things. And so if they don't know they're supposed to be asking this, they're not going to ask. It's as simple as that. Um, are there any other people who should be responsible? So I think it's Borgogna, if I don't at all, suggested the DTC. DCT, the Director of Clinical Training. Is there someone else who should be responsible for telling you how much debt you can expect, whether or not you're going to get an assistantship or not? Whose job is it?
Your PI, maybe?
Your advisor?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it should an advisor. Any other people? I don't know if there's no right or wrong answer, but
I was thinking for my stipend, part of what I did first year was to work in our like administration office. So I was
Mhm.
the one like sending out emails and organizing things for our DCT. Um, and we did have a secretary that was staff as well, but I was like, I would have been really helpful for somebody in that office that handles like the other sides of the organizational stuff. Like they would be responsible for like I would email our alumni and ask about things for our newsletter and job opportunities. And that's something that even if they don't have all the answers, like David said, it would be nice to have additional resources and additional people you can ask that about.
Yeah, a specialty point person.
Yeah,
Um,
who kind of knows the program
yeah.
and yeah.
And Adrian, I too feel like maybe that could or should be my advisor. Um, and I know from my school, we were forwarded to our financial aid office during the interview process. They were like, "But we have an office. Talk to them." But sometimes they don't know things either because they're like, "Well, we don't know what assistantships your program's going to offer," and so forth. I'm gonna keep going, and then in the chat, when would you want to be educated on the true cost of graduate school? Undergrad before the application process and after undergrad, during the application process, but before the interview, during the interview process, after and accepting, but before committing, after committing. Okay, so Jessica said undergrad in caps locks. Anybody else? This is a lot for me to type in. What about other people? When should you be educated on this? Undergrad is getting some votes. All of the above, so like happening throughout. It should be a consistent dialogue. I should have had that as an option. That's a good one. Um, okay. Feel like we're on undergrad very strongly. So I'm gonna move forward. So I think, and again, I don't know if I'm mispronouncing this, Borgogna posits that doctoral programs may be uncomfortable, and that was the word they used, discussing the debt regarding attendance of their programs, but that it is important. What are the pros and cons of relaying this information to prospective students? And because we're so small, I'm actually going to do something I don't usually do, but we're going to type together. So either in the chat or going off mic, what are some pros of getting students informed? If we can inform them early, even if the program is uncomfortable.
Informed consent, informed decision making of like choosing
Mhm.
this program.
So students being more informed before they opt into the next 4 years and potential debt, make informed decisions, yeah. So similar gist, informed decisions, and that also would feel like that should be its own thing. Decreased regret,
Retention.
improved retention. Any other pros? And if not, I feel like cons is a lot stronger. What are some cons um, of telling students and being transparent with students about like, hey, you may be $60,000 in debt in this PhD program or more in a PsyD program?
I think from a university standpoint, of course, is you don't get enough students maybe to warrant keeping that particular program. Um, so there is a money aspect in terms of um, hate to say it for lack of a better word, but kind of profitability.
Mhm.
Whether it meets the bottom line of being able to keep that particular program at a university.
Right. And so some students may be scared off if they knew the truth. They may not want to apply. I know that would have been my case, not for my school, but there would have been some schools on my list that I wouldn't have applied to if I knew the whole story. Any fear to commit? Oh, yeah. Yeah. So fear of committing. So hesitancy to enroll. I feel like those are pretty salient and probably like really real as to why people don't want to be transparent about like, hey, you may get some debt if you come here, but we want you. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and do slideshow again. So if you're a current graduate student, you've probably had a hustle and all of you have. But and here are some ways that I've seen other students save or make money, and some of these are ways that I have. You'll never know which are which. But working assistantships, working part-time jobs, living with roommates, living further from campus, living with family, whether you like them or not, selling personal belongings, taking gap years between undergrad and graduate school is safe, using public transportation or walking instead of having a car, purchasing used textbooks or materials, purchasing used clothing, foregoing meal plans, cooking independently, working in a dorm like as a RA, a resident assistant, applying for scholarships, and we know those are competitive, using school campus pantries, local food bank, food stamps, selling plasma. And with that in mind, this is for the group, and we're near the end with about 3 more slides to go. What are other ways you or someone you know has saved or earned money? You can put it in the chat, or you can say it out loud and I'll just type it here. Any other unique ways students can save money? And B, I remember you mentioned taking surveys, right?
Yeah, yeah. It wasn't very lucrative, but we tried.
It's you still made bank. Like that's great.
Yeah.
Taking on surveys online. Is there any other thing? Osheo.
Yeah, so I'm just, I mean, I approached my graduate studies with a mindset of the big picture long term for me was not always to have my primary source of income. This is not necessarily helpful while you're a graduate student, but I think we can work with that in mind. So figuring out ways in which you can build skill on a very steady pace so that once you graduate, you have other opportunities to earn outside of the 9 to 5, right? Definitely having that entrepreneurial heart hat on my head while I was in graduate school was very, very helpful. Even while I'm a professional now, part of the reason why I'm looking to um, get board certified is looking at other ways in which I can generate income to have this sustainable because you have a passion. I mean, we're all in this helping field because of our own story and why we decided to this, go into this field, right? But we're thinking long term about ways in which this can be sustainable for the life we want to be able to live. I think it's important. And I think as a student, wearing that hat to say, this is might not be easy right now, but what niche can I begin to carve for myself so that when I finish, I already have built enough skill set to be able to look for other ways to generate income.
I really like that, being mindful about what other skills you can develop in undergrad that are going to be helpful in the future. And like an example for me, I worked for a nonprofit in undergrad, and so I had the skills to work for nonprofits after I graduated. Um, thank you. And then Osheo, I don't know if you're gonna, if you want to speak again, or the hand is still up. Okay.
No, no, no,
Any
sorry.
other? No, you're good. Any other ideas? Wait, Osheo? It's okay.
What Sheo said reminded me, one of my friends in when they were in medical school, because one of my schools was EBMS, he loved music and uh, started to like DJ on the side. And I thought that that was so creative. So he sort of like got it, it allowed him to kind of have an excuse to do his hobby. And he made a little bit of money while doing it. Um,
I love that. Capitalizing on our hobbies. That's the American dream. Great. And then Angela, I don't know if you wanted to share or That was an
Yeah,
accident.
no, it was on purpose, but I was like,
Okay.
I'll lightly go that way in case somebody else wants to. So I have a different path than everybody else. So I actually have my MSW. I'm not a psychologist. But when I was in graduate school, I went straight from undergrad to graduate school, and I didn't really have any experience like as a practitioner. And so I knew that I was going to have to get a job outside of school, I was going to have to start building my resume. Um, so I got a full-time job as an overnight staff at a shelter because they needed somebody to do the overnight shifts, and most people hate that job. But it was a very low-key job, and I would literally like go to school full time. I would sleep like during like the off hours, and then I would work full time overnights at the shelter, which was very low key, and I'd do all my homework during that time. So that was how I was like making all my money, and I was also able to kind of like double it up with doing my homework at the same time because it was a lower need. On the days that it was not a lower key job, because that happens too, it that was not very advantageous, but it was just something that I was I knew it was going to be low key when I went into
Mhm.
it, and it was able to build a few skills. So I think like thinking of jobs where they kind of just need a body there,
Right.
because you're kind of more like monitoring something. You can kind of do homework at the same time, make money to kind of get that side hustle in. That was kind of my thought process.
Thank you for sharing that. I remember I met a student, another peer of mine who does security. He just needs to sit at a desk for overnight shifts. That's like, and he does his homework and he was able to do graduate school. And then Adrian, I also saw you were going to speak to.
Yeah, just the stock market thing again.
Yes.
I found that that was like particularly cool for me because I don't have time, you know? And when I put my money into the stock market, I don't do anything to it. It's not
Mhm.
like I'm clocking into the stock market or something. Like it just grows by itself.
Right.
The only problem with this is that you have to like have money first to like then
Mhm.
put into
That's
the stock market.
very true.
So like the way that I did that is because I had gap years between my bachelor's degree and my PhD. So I knew during those gap years I was going to get into a PhD and I knew I needed money. So I like squirreled it all away into the stock market. And it's been like growing over the couple of years.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that one too. I've always wanted to get into it. I don't know. I never knew where to start. I feel like I have to connect with you at some point. But I like your point too. You have to have money to get into this to make money. Um, so some reflections. I think this we're gonna just end. We're wrapping up. This is the last slide essentially. And we'll just go around. If you're an undergrad, how has the following information shaped your perspective on earning a doctoral student? If you're a current grad student, what are ways you can increase financial transparency for other prospective students? If you're currently in your career, what are ways you can help increase financial transparency for prospective students or current grad students? And if none of this applied to you, for anyone here, for other reasons, what is one takeaway? And so I'd like for everyone to go around. I can't force you, but that'd be great. And then I'll do my takeaway at the end too. Does anyone want to go first? Okay, I no. Um,
I
let
could
me
go.
see.
I think one thing that has been normalized here is the fact that it's a struggle, right? It's a
Mhm.
struggle to go through a program with earning very little. It takes a toll, not just financially, but also the psychology of just being able to concentrate on why you're there. Like studying, you're thinking about all those bills that need to be paid while you're a student or even afterwards. But one thing that's comforting that I would take away and I would like to pay forward in terms of my time today here is surrounding yourself with mentors, people who have been in the
Mhm.
field for 5, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, who have walked your shoes and who have lived enough in their careers to be able to guide you through whatever it is, right? Checking in with them every now and then when you feel stuck. I've not really, financials is not something that I've actually sought my mentors for. I wish I should have, right? But asking them questions that relate to, like, how did you navigate through this? What are some tips that I could probably offer? You could offer me. The second thing I also like to say in terms of reflection is fellowship. I think that there's so many. I think Lisa, you mentioned it that there's many opportunities within the school, but people are not willing to share, or they just keep it kind of like for you to figure out and discover, which shouldn't be the case. Um, I think for me, coming in with summer fellowship was really, really helpful because every now and then we had lunches, we had dinners, we had guest speakers come through, and we had resources shared to us that way, right? Also within the graduate school, there, like, the other thing is, as no matter how busy your program is, try to hang out with interdisciplinary other graduate students and not studying what you're studying because the chances
Yeah.
are that they know a lot more, right, resources, so that way you could benefit from some of the resources that are available to them. But I definitely like the idea of coming together and talking because it validates the experience of what it feels like to go through graduate school.
Thank you, Osheo. And connection is so, so important. For example, I didn't know A&M had a food gift card system until after I connected with someone from like the school department or like they call Sahi, the people who work in residence life. I would never have known if I hadn't connected with people outside my field. Um, does anyone want to go next? And yeah, I can go like, I'm very vocal now with students during interview processes. I tell students what I've had to do to like make ends meet and get through this program and ways to like hack finances and find ways to make double the income. For example, my school, we have an assistantship that you can get clinical hours in. And so there you're getting two birds with one stone of you're getting your clinical hours and you're also you're getting paid to do that. So I hope that warms up some of you that are left over. And if you don't want to speak, that's okay too.
I love that you're more vocal with interviews. That's something that after my first year, I also really started to do, and same with my peers, because we are like, oh my gosh, like there's so much that we wish they knew, while also
Yeah.
still not discouraging them from applying to the program, you know?
Right.
And I am currently in my career, I'm very early. I'm have taken and passed the triple P, and now I'm taking the law and ethics exam. And it's just like community is a big part. I feel like I rely on some of my friends who are like above me in the program that are now like licensed psychologists, and I ask them questions all the time. And if they don't know, often they know somebody who might know.
Right.
Um, like for example, I've trained in the VA, and so like one of my friends works in the VA, and so she told me like about the level system, the GS system, and like uh, when might be the best time to apply for a VA position because that kind of thing. And so that's been helpful. But I do really think that applying this for like postdocs or like interns and like people who are going on internship, like you touched on so many things about internship applications are so expensive. Postdoc does not pay well almost everywhere. And, it's just tough because sometimes we think like, oh, if I just make it, and I
Right.
graduate, things will get easier. And sometimes it takes longer than we might think. So I appreciate you touching on that.
Thank you, B. Okay.
I think the the fact that I have several marginalized identities has been like a detriment for a lot of my life, but I think that I have learned to use that to my benefit. It has forced me to be a very resourceful person. And I have had to figure out all of these like systems by myself my entire life. Like I didn't know, for example, food stamps. That's one that like my family has had to use in the past, and that like skill of navigating the welfare system is now useful again in my PhD program. I wish it didn't have to be. But this has made me incredibly knowledgeable. And I am very financially literate. I think that
Right.
what I find most important about this is sharing that knowledge and to continue to communicate with other people. Maybe I can learn some new stuff. Maybe I can tell other people what I have learned. And together we like uplift each other. Maybe one day we'll be able to change this inequitable system from the inside.
Like it sounds like a lift as you climb mentality. And it sound your experiences have also kind of forced you to be the best self advocate ever. Like you know how to advocate for yourself for whatever you need.
And my peers. Yeah.
And your peers too.
Mhm.
Um, okay. I'm gonna go ahead and move to the other slide and kind of these are just personal reflections too. That if I could go back, I would have worked more, maybe a year or two more to save money so that I wouldn't have to take out as many loans. During the application phase, I would have tracked the cost and fees of programs. I would have used the living wage calculator to help me figure out like what are cities that are reasonable. If I'm not going to get paid very much, I might as well live somewhere that's affordable. During the interview phase, I would have done a better job of tracking how many students are talking about getting assistantships, how many students are talking about getting loans. And before enrolling, I would have wanted to know about the cost of internship apps. I didn't know there was a cost. I would have wanted to learn more about how does out of state work, if and how does money work with that. I would have better planned for the amount of debt I could or should anticipate taking before entering the program. But what I wouldn't change, applying to and working in assistantships, working external jobs, applying for scholarships that have been available. I've also have a current scholarship with the military. That was also a personal choice and I have personal reasons for that, but it covers my tuition and fees for my final years of my program, and I owe them 3 years of service. Um, so that's another option that I've had to do. It's a bigger commitment too. Um, we can talk if you ever want to connect about that, LinkedIn me. During the interview process, asking programs what students' financial situation was. I'm very glad I did because them being hesitant to answer me was also data of like, maybe if they're scared to tell me, maybe this is a red flag. And then also living with roommates. So for example, I pay $500 about because I live with other people. Whereas people who are living by themselves are paying 800 or 1,000. So I'm saving. Um, and that's about it. Here are the references. And that is all for tonight. Thank you so much for joining me, letting me talk about this. I love this topic so much. Um, I wish we would all be educated earlier on such topics. And thank you for sharing your link. Can I add you all, or is that
Yeah,
cool?
please, please.
Thank you. I'm gonna go ahead and add you all pretty soon. Are there any questions last minute before we start wrapping up?
Okay, I'll jump in then. Thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. It's always exciting when we have these offerings to the community. So, I am going to include all of these details in the chat, and I'll read through them. So, I'll go ahead. Again, thank you for coming. In the chat, I'll put a link for a post-event survey that will also inform if you do it about our future programming. That's also really helpful because it kind of just helps us get a good feel of what you're looking for in the future. We offer these free webinars. We like to hear, feedback of what else you'd love to see or hear. Um, so as far as, let's see, that's a needs assessment. We also, I said earlier, we absolutely accept donations. I will put that in the chat as well. It's going to look a little funny because it has an old link, but it's still the current link. So I apologize that it looks a little funny. And then lastly, we would love to keep in touch with you. Follow us on social media platforms to stay up to date on any of our future events and programs. And I will put those links in the chat as well. But that is pretty much everything. And Lisa, thank you so, so, so much for coming today. We really do appreciate you. And you did a great job. I think that this was extremely informative.
Oh, and thank you for inviting me. And all of you guys, thank you so much for participating. I love talking with other people who are in this field who have also had a hustle to get to where you are. We're in this together.
Yes.
That was a little cliche. That's like the High School Musical thing, right?
A classic.
Uh,
Well, thank you, everybody. Have a great night. And it was nice to see you all.
Thank you.